Hello, I'm Jason E., a visual artist who makes art in sculpture, photography, video, and drawing. My art involves how we see and experience our environment, including natural or constructed landscapes. Oftentimes, I like to use materials that are not considered traditional art materials, materials that are either store bought or found. Materials such as plastics, any sort of plastics, or plumbing PVC tubes, or duct tape, or foam, or even found wood or objects. I do like the idea of transforming these common materials into something that is art or viewed as art. There's something about that transformation I really enjoy, that people can see this work both in their everyday life, but also can be seen through a lens that makes it an artwork, something to be looked at and to contemplate. One of my sculpture series is called The Plumes. Here I explore the ideas behind smoke plumes. Something about smoke plumes I really am interested in. It's both mysterious to me and also beautiful to look at, especially when you don't know where the smoke is coming from. The smoke is something that is shapeless and it disappears ultimately. It's only temporary, so that it lingers in your memory as to what that smoke may look like, but it only lasts for so long. This sculpture series tries to sort of mimic the smoke forms, the plumes that we may see in the real world. But I also try to use the materials, like I've said before, of common materials to create these plume or smoke shapes, or at least to try to reference it, to give it that feel for that smoke. And with this in mind, I have found through lots and lots of experimentations, I found a specific process in which I make the plume series. Basically, creating this plume, I have four materials, four things that I want to show you. First, I created these molds. They are made of plaster or plaster gauze, and the plaster gauze is wrapped around various sized balls. Anything from beach balls to soccer balls to even exercise balls to create this mold. So imagine a ball inside of this I took out. Now, with that, I'm also using paraffin wax, just a regular household metallic based paint. Then finally, I use an insulation foam. Now this one is a pond and stone insulation foam. So the color is quite different than what you may be normally to recognize as insulation foam, which usually comes in yellowish, tannish color. The pond and stone foam comes in black. And I thought that was unique, and I thought that would be very interesting for me to use because that further hides the material to what it is, the recognition of the material. So how do I make the work? So we have this plaster mold. On the inside, I paint the inside of this mold with melted paraffin wax to cover the inside entirely with wax. And then what the wax does is it creates a barrier. Since ultimately what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be using the spray foam to spray the inside of this mold. And as we all know, that the spray foam sticks to a lot of different things. And if I did not use wax, it would be sticking to the plaster. So I paint the inside with wax, melted wax. Then on top of that, I paint with this silver metallic household paint on the inside. Then once that dries, I spray the inside with the spray foam. So you can see its state where I sprayed and it's hardened by now. And you can see the patterns and shapes that I employ in creating this sort of perforated, holy piece. Then once this spray foam dries and hardens and expands, I can easily take this piece off, and some of that silver paint transfers onto this black foam. So you get this sort of very metallic visual quality about this sort of a spherical form. So I have lots and lots of different sizes of these molds to create a lot of different size forms. So here's one that is made from a beach ball, and you can see how I sprayed the inside of this beach ball. So imagine me having lots and lots of different size shapes like this, of varying patterns, because no one pattern is going to be the same, of the foam. Then ultimately these inventory of foam is used to construct a larger, more cohesive sculpture form that mimics a plume. So this is just a, you could call it a brick. It's a foundation in which I actually create the final piece. This took me a long time to figure out, because in the beginning, I really didn't know what to do with foam, because foam sticks to so many different things. But over time, through lots and lots of experimentations, I figured out a way to create what I wanted to create, what I visualized, what I sketched out. So, what I'm hoping for with this piece or this series is that for people to see the work and see it in many different ways. So one, I want the work to be seen as sort of this very imposing form, but also quite beautiful to look at. And I would like the work to seem very heavy, from a distance at least. Then once you get closer and closer to the piece, the viewer will realize that the sculpture is actually very airy, that you can actually see through the work, through the perforations within the foam. And then they'll discover that this is not metal, this is not something heavy, but it looks, by further examination, it's a lightweight, foamy material. So what it does is it changes our perception of what it is and the reality of what that form is. So we're going back from the smoked shape, where it has no mass, into a sculpture form which seemingly has mass. Then once you get closer to it, the viewer gets closer to it, you lose that, and it goes back to the idea of what a plume may represent, which is light and airy, and it feels like it could disappear into the thin air.